In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how F1 sim racing drivers utilize the battery feature within F1 24, maximizing the pace, minimizing the chance to be overtaken, while also maximizing the chance to overtake your rival. That's all going to be covered in today's video. I'm going to be using my own onboard from the China race during this season that has just finished to show you exactly what I'm doing. With that being said, let's jump into the heart of the video and straight into the action. So here we are on the grid here at China and talking you through my battery strategies to try and maximize my raw pace, my overtaking and my defending ability during these laps of the race. So first of all, we're going to be starting with the race start and we're going to be breaking down in detail exactly what I'm thinking, exactly what I'm doing, so hopefully you at home can also learn and you can improve your skill set if you wish to do so. So with that being said, we are on the race start here and we're going to be starting the race in the medium battery allocation. Of course, this is a replay of my onboard and unfortunately we do not have the game audio recorded, so you will not be able to hear my my car sounds, and that is just how the file was sent to me by F1 Sim Racing. It's unfortunate, but we're going to do this video anyway and work around it. So with that being said, you can see as soon as we're confident to be to 100% power and we know that we're not going to get wheel spin, then we go to the overtake button to start building momentum as much as possible. I'm looking ahead, looking behind to try and manage the situation. I recognize that Jarno, Thomas and Ulas have not had bad starts and they've had good starts in their own ways, what means the chance of overtaking them down to turn 1 is quite minimal. So I turn off my overtake button because I also register that Daniel Bresnay and Otis Lawrence are not close enough to me, and I can have the ability to defend from them without using additional battery and wasting my battery allocation because of that. You can see we are in medium ERS mode right now, covering the middle of the road just to make sure they can't go up the inside of me, and this will be enough for me to maintain my track position while using minimal battery. Of course, if Daniel Bresnay or Otis got a better start, I would have been using my overtake button for longer, and if I had a chance to overtake Jarno, Ulas or Thomas into turn 1, I would have been using the overtake button to maximize that chance. So you can see running the car in medium just to make sure that if we do have a car battling us, we can go back to the power and be straight back to full power ASAP. On the exit of turn 2 though, this is where it's going to get a bit interesting again and where a bit more strategy comes into it. We've had a really good exit and we're up the inside of Jarno Opmeer right now. We're getting loads of wheel spin on such a tight, difficult line, but as soon as we feel that we can, we're back to 100% power and we're trying to get as close to Jarno as possible, immediately going in the slipstream of Jarno to try and increase the chance of overtaking him. As you can see, using the overtake button right now where my mouse cursor is highlighting, but I can see that Jarno has quite a good momentum, so the chance of overtaking him is quite low, and I'm immediately recognizing the dangers of the cars behind of Otis Lawrence and Daniel Bresnay to ensure that we're not going to have the risk of being overtaken. I do know, you can see that they're side by side going into the corner, so of course they're going to be using their battery as much as possible, what means I have to keep my momentum higher. I go to the inside here, not really to attack Jarno, but to make sure that Otis can't have a massive lunge at me up the inside or attacking Daniel Bresnay, and closes off the line to make sure that I can defend and I don't have to be under pressure from cars behind. You can see the 2 white arrows behind me are still side by side, and we was able to cover the line adequately to make sure that we didn't have any risk of losing the position ourselves. You can see now that Otis has pretty much got past Daniel Bresnay. We use a little bit of overtake on the exit to make sure that our momentum goes a bit higher on the velocity of the car. And that is now the first sector done. For the rest of the first lap, this is really where you want to be open-minded with your battery usage, quite simply because the chance to go forward is quite high, but also the chance to lose positions can be high as well. So you can see just not wasting battery on this first lap because it is so critical. Of course, DRS is not even enabled yet, so you have to make sure that any battery you do use is going to be worthy and is going to be in a situation that's efficient. We use a bit of battery on the exit coming to the back straight just to make sure that Otis can't have a look at us, and maybe we can start having a look at Yano if he got a bad exit, but nothing doing there, and we're able to, again, just to cover the inside line because we just don't want to risk Otis sending it up the inside and we're losing a track position in a silly way. Coming to the end of the first lap, coming for the final corner, and we're going to be ending the first lap on about 70% battery, 69% to be Pacific. And that is a very nice battery having at the end of the first lap. And you can see on the bottom right hand side of the screen, we're already back to none on the battery deployment. And the key point summary here is, while you are not attacking and while you are not defending, in these situations where you are in a DRS train, you want to be in none battery as much as possible. Quite simply because it means that you can recover that battery for later in the lap, later in the stint, to be as high as possible. Because of course, if you hold the battery for about 30% of the overtake button, that can be honestly upwards of like 3 to half a second worth of pace. I would say about 3/10 of pace, maybe half a second, a bit exaggerated, but holding it for 30% is a huge advantage on lap time potential, and you really want to utilize that. So in this situation right now, I know that the pace is dictated by Thomas up ahead, and then Ulas, and then Jarno. Irrelevant of how fast I go, unless I make a massive overtaking move on Jarno in the middle sector, how fast I go is irrelevant because I'm still going to be behind Jarno, and the only thing I may do is waste my battery potential just getting closer to him in a situation that doesn't really matter. So for example, I know that Jarno has the DRS on Ulas, and Ulas has the DRS on Thomas up ahead, and Otis has the DRS on me. So the chance of actually overtaking Jarno in this situation, because he has the DRS deployment as well, is basically none. It would require him to be using none overtake, none battery, I should be saying, down the back straight, and for me to be using the overtake button as well. So you can see Otis is definitely using the overtake button behind me, but because I have the DRS as well, his chance of overtaking is slim to nothing. Jarno as well used a bit of overtake down the start of the straight, and additionally with his DRS deployment, again, the chance of overtaking is slim to nothing. So that is the summary of also that point, and now we are fully through the race start, and of course we've done lap 1 and lap 2 as well. It is all about being efficient on the battery. If you think you can get a maneuver done, go for it, take that position, and just try not to waste your battery too much, otherwise you may become vulnerable to the cars behind if they have more battery deployment than you do. Now moving on to lap 3 here in the race, and spoiler alert, I'm going to be losing the position to Otis, and I'm going to be talking you through what I could have maybe be doing better in this situation. You can see I use the overtake button because I recognize that Otis is quite close, and Otis is staying with his overtake button committed and fully pressed down the back straight, and you can see he's gaining a lot of momentum to me in the slipstream. You can see I go defensive because I don't want Otis to have the chance to go to the inside line, but Otis does a fantastic job under the brakes trying to go around the outside of me, and now is side by side. This is where it gets really, really critical on the exit though, because on the first straight I probably could have used more battery to ensure that he couldn't have been in that position anyway, but that's a lesson for me to learn, and hopefully people watching at home can also learn from that as well. But this is what I did to recover the situation. So in racing, you never really want to be honest, compromise your future parts of the races looking after a mistake you've done previously. And what I mean by that is you're going to see that I'm using the overtake button right now because we're still side by side with Otis going down into the final corner of China. Of course, the final corner is a sharp left-hander, and if you're on the outside line, unless you're ahead going into the apex, it's pretty much impossible to keep the track position. So you can see I recognize that Otis is now so far alongside that he's going to have the track position pretty much no matter what I say about it. So in reaction to that, I turn off my overtake button, saving the overtake button into the corner. You can see that I'm squeezing Otis to the inside line as much as possible before opening up the apex myself to try and maximize the exit. Braking early, trying now to get back to the power super early, and we've done a really good job during this corner to get back to the power. Otis is compromised on the exit, and now we start using the overtake button immediately. But I have an immediate thought process right now that I see that Tamascal and ERS behind me are both on the soft compound tire, and they are going to be very, very quick with that soft compound tire, especially compared to my hards this early in the race. Even more so, if they've been saving their battery and they haven't been wasting their battery, I will be even more vulnerable to them. So I come out of the slipstream of Otis. I'm thinking about trying to do the move right now, but I actually decide against it because I don't want to be using too much of my battery, risking to fight Otis. But then if the move doesn't happen, I'm going to be in a situation that maybe we even lose the DRS to Jarno Otmar ahead, and maybe even worse, that Tamas and ERS are able to overtake me while I have 0 battery left on my allocation. Something changes though on the straight. You can see now the flashing light is on from Otis Lawrence ahead, and what that means is he has turned off his battery deployment and he is having no ERS deployment to be making power to the rear tires. So he's about 150 horsepower down, and that means there's a chance for me to try and recuperate my position. So I turn on my overtake button, seeing that maybe he has none, very low to none battery left, and we're trying now to get the move done. And look at the speed difference with me with the overtake button and Otis with no on the ERS. We're able to draw alongside him, but you can still see we are not wasting all of our battery just yet because we're still keeping the battery to a decent level at 20%. So it's not the end of the world if I lose this position to Otis, because we are still in the leading train on the same compound as tires as the leaders, but it will be basically disastrous for our race if we drop behind the soft compound tires, because maybe when they box we will not be in the DRS of the leading pack anymore, and that will mean that we have basically 0 chance to win the race. So you can see we fight Otis, we try to get the position back, but we're very careful to not waste our battery and leave ourselves in an even more vulnerable position going forward after this. So now the position is done and we are immediately into harvesting the battery, because the chance of re-overtaking Otis on this lap would require him to make a mistake. But the real big risk is now that Tamas will have a higher battery than us and possibly better grip from us with those soft compound tires. That means we need to recover this battery ASAP. And you can see in the middle sector right now, we are going to be spending so long in none on the ERS deployment. You can see that on the bottom right hand side of the screen. And that is just us trying to reallocate our battery as high as possible before the back straight. And we are going to be using no overtake button in the middle sector. You can see Tamas now is very close to us, and we are feeling actually a bit vulnerable right now, to be honest, because we do not have the most battery of the race, and we only have 74% going onto the back straight. 74% is only just enough to defend going down this straight if I was to use it for the whole time. And you can see Tamas is holding the overtake button the whole time, and we're watching him with great detail to make sure that we are not going to be vulnerable. And coming towards the end of the straight, you can see we have 21% on the battery, and that is simply just going to be enough. If we started the back straight with 50%, we would have been overtaken in that situation. So not using the overtake button in the middle sector saved us and gave us the opportunity to not be vulnerable because of that. So key lesson in that situation: once you know you lost the place, don't waste your battery fighting a position that's already been lost, and have an image of the bigger picture during the race. I can always re-overtake Otis later, either on track or in the pit stops, to maximize my chances. But if I got overtaken by the harsh drivers and they boxed and I lost the DRS to the leading cars, I would have been out of contention for the win. So just keep that in mind and bear that in mind. And something to always think about is, don't waste your potential on the battery fighting a position that's already been lost. You can see now here on lap 7, we've done a really good job of building the battery up. It was at 100% going through that section of corners. Of course, depletes a bit on the straight naturally from accelerating, but we've decided to chill out in this race. Let the leaders fight amongst themselves, and we're just going to focus on getting the battery as high as possible before the pit stop window. The reason that we want to do this strategically to give an advantage is, of course, if we enter the pit lane with 100% battery, this means that we can have a situation that we can attack more on the outlap and do more of an undercut compared to the other cars and maximize performance because of this. If we had quite a low battery percent, maybe 50, then we're going to be losing a lot of lap time potential. About 50% battery is probably, comparing to using medium, can be even up to half a second a lap in the right usage. So you can imagine half a second a lap is so crucial. And in this example, Jarno is 0.6 head. So using about 80% battery right now on an undercut situation would mean that we were able to gain 2 positions against Otis and also Jarno. So we're making sure that our battery is very, very high to open up the opportunities in that situation. Equally, to make sure that we're at minimal risk of being undercutted as well. So now it is our box lap here, and we are going to be making our pit stop during this lap of the race. And this is where, again, it gets a bit strategical, because I am close enough to Ulas to try and have a go, but simply I'm making a clear signal to the cars ahead that I don't want to lose time fighting. And additionally, I'm building up my battery as high as possible before the pit stop. Again, I could have had a look at Ulas there to overtake, but it's just not good for my race. And you can see this is where it gets a bit more interesting. I'm immediately putting my battery to none to ensure that I can have the maximum possible allocation before going into the pit lane. As we almost go into the wall. Oh my god, that was a bit close. Getting the car slowed down, and now we're able to go into the pit lane with a very nice, healthy battery amount. Skipping the whole pit lane process because that's a bit boring, and we want to focus on the actual video of the ERS. You can see exiting the pit lane now with 82% on the battery allocation. We're allowed to cut over the white line in F1 sim racing, and now we're into clean air. And you're going to see how I strategically use my battery to be working forward in this race. And I'm in constant communication with my engineer on how much battery I should be using, because of course you want to be using as little battery allocation as possible, quite simply because you want to be saving it for later in the race to fight, attack and defend. But I also know I have the opportunity to undercut Jarno, Ulas and Thomas in this situation, so I am trying to be in constant communication with my engineer who has the pit window gaps to make sure that I can be using the opportunity to get ahead of those cars while using the minimal amount of battery. So you can see using a bit of overtake on the exit of the corners, using none at the moment because going through these steps in the corners, it's pointless to do so. And this is where a new twist in the turn of the race happens. You can see Bari up ahead is now slowing down the cars, and I have the opportunity to get into the DRS of Tamas Gal up ahead. So I immediately start using the battery, because even if I don't overtake the cars ahead, me getting the DRS would be about 4 tenths of pace advantage down the back straight. So I think, why not? Let's get in that DRS allocation. And I knew what Bari was doing right now. Bari was basically just trying to hold up the pack so his teammate Nicholas Longue could have a better opportunity to move forward. So I do not use any of my overtake button down the straight, quite simply because I knew that the chance of overtaking Bari is 0 on this straight, because Bari is always going to use his battery to try and keep Tamas behind. So you can see we're just running medium, analyzing, watching the situation ahead and not wasting any of our battery allocation. You can see up ahead, Tamas, Otis, Bari are fighting, and I also know right now Bari is going to be very low on the ERS, and this is where our opportunity to strike is. So you can see now, because of the battery that we saved in the earlier parts of the lap and the not wasting it on the back straight, we're just going to go, see you later, double overtake, and we're able to get past Bari and Tamas in a very quick and easy, swift overtaking maneuver. And now we are theoretically in P2 of this race, largely because our battery usage, our battery strategy to not waste it in moments that we didn't need to. Now you can see here on lap 14, basically Otis wants to be the car behind so he can save his battery, save his ERS, and be a bit more strategical. And this is where I alluded to earlier in the video that I'm going to be trying to use my battery basically for raw pace, rather than in a strategical fighting way, because I know that we can't lose too much time with the train right now, and we basically have to manage it. So regardless of what I do on my battery deployment, I cannot cost too much time for the train, otherwise it means that the cars that are going longer for the overcut are going to have the easiest win of their lives. So I have to keep the pace high, and what I'm doing, of course, is using none in the corners, using a bit of overtake on the exit of the exit of the corner, and the longer the straight that follows, the more overtake button I will use. But in summary, always using the none in the corner, putting it back to medium for the majority of the straight, and then using overtake to build momentum on the exit as well to get the speed velocity higher. And this is a really important strategy to maximize going forward. You can see now on none as well, back over to medium, and I've been able to gain back to 100% battery, and this has been a nice way for me to be having a really good pace during this lap, and also managing the gap. You can see we had half a second at one point on the exit of the corner, 4.5 attempts as well. So we clearly have a good pace, we have a good management at the moment, and now we're just going to be letting these cars by because we don't want to be leading the race. We prefer to be the car behind, saving our batteries, saving our tires as well to have a good opportunity later in the stint. So yeah, that's been this video on how to use the battery on the race start, how I used it on the attacking, how I used it on the defending, how I used it on the raw pace as well, and hopefully it can give you a bit of an insight to how I'm thinking, feeling, and changing my strategy during the race to maximize the opportunity going forward. Hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Hopefully it's been a good insight for you, because of course my career is now done in F1 sim racing, so I want to be showing you and giving you all the little detailed analysis that I'm thinking about when driving, and how I can maximize my own performance, and hopefully that can be translated to the videos that I'm doing for you at home as well. With that being said, again, apologies for no game audio. It was just how this file was sent to me when I got it from F1 sim racing. These things can happen, it's unfortunate, but with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Grazie, ciao ciao, bye bye.